Hey everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. By the way, less than 50% of people watching this video are subscribed, so if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider subscribing so you won't miss out on our future videos. Without wasting any more time, let's get into the stories of the day. Notate the account thoroughly? You got it! I work at a call center for health insurance. One of the things that people really seem to get mad about is when we tell them we can't do something because it would break HIPAA, which is a federal privacy law that specifically protects health and medical information. So a few days ago, a gent calls in on behalf of a provider's office, provider in this case meaning doctor, wanting to check eligibility and benefits for a patient. He gives me the NPI, National Provider Identifier, number for the practice, and per HIPAA and all my training, I ask him to verify the address in the system. He gives me an address that is decidedly not the one in the system, and when I politely explain that, he says he doesn't know any other address. So I told him that we couldn't properly verify him. We're required to verify the following 3 things for a doctor's office or facility: NPI or tax ID number, name of the practice, facility, or individual provider, and address as it appears in the system. I couldn't give specific benefits for a patient, but I could give general plan information. Gentleman just kept sitting on the phone line, demanding specifics, while I kept patiently explaining why I couldn't do that. He finally goes off on me, telling me that he's been doing this for years and he knows he can do it, and to transfer him to my supervisor and make it quick. A little irked at that particular demand because a transfer takes more than a few seconds to set up these days, due to working from home, I politely said that I would need a minute or 2 at least to set it up and put a note in the system. Provider rep says, "Yes, please put a nice long note in the system." Aye aye, mother trucker. Into the transfer notes went the following: the name of the caller, the NPI number used, the request to speak to a supervisor, why he requested a supervisor, the address he gave that wasn't in the system, what he had initially requested, what I offered to give him, what I had explained to him about why I couldn't do as he asked, his admission that he didn't know the address in the system. We have room for 4,000 characters in the transfer notes. I used all but 25 of them. I transferred him and took more calls, but got curious during my break and took a look to see what happened. Noted onto the account were multiple notes from multiple supervisors that he was unable to be verified and that we couldn't give him the requested info, as explained to him by the initial rep who took his call. The final supervisor note said that he was requesting a call back from someone higher than that supervisor, but that he got mad and hung up before giving them his number after the supervisor requested a minute to get the callback note together. So, as a result of him telling me to put a long note in the system, he got none of the information he requested. He got nobody who would break HIPAA for him, and he is getting 0 callbacks because he refused to be patient and wait for the request to be completed properly. Don't ask call center reps to break HIPAA, folks. We will rat you out to other reps, and you will get 0 of what you requested. HIPAA is definitely not something you want to mess around with, and this guy is clueless if he's not able to understand that. I should do my job? Okay. I got my first job at 16 working in a ski resort's restaurant in the kitchens. I was a line cook. That was my job, but on busy days I'd help bring out food just to keep the plate area clean enough to put more up. This wasn't a particularly busy day, but the meal I put up wasn't getting taken out and I couldn't see the waitress. After 5 minutes, I made sure that the only 2 items from my side of the line were the only ones on the ticket and went out to deliver the plates before they got cold. I approached the table with my best smile and chirpy voice and set down the chicken tenders and fries and a Caesar salad in front of a Karen and her child. "What is this? You're not our waitress." I understand and apologize for the surprise. I just wanted to make sure your food wasn't cold before it got to you. "Unacceptable. Kitchen staff shouldn't come out of the kitchen. You should do your job. Take this back, it's probably filthy." I looked at the kid who was about to dig into his golden fries before his basket was swiped away from his mother and shoved back into my hands. He looked surprised, then like he was about to cry as Karen shooed me away back to the kitchen. I went back dumbfounded, but the customer's always right? Guess I'll stick to my job in the kitchen. The kid was crying and Karen just gave him a few quarters to play the cheap arcade games we have in the pit before going to her phone. The waitress wasn't coming back, but I had to do my job, right? My job was in the kitchen. Maybe 30 minutes had passed and Karen looked impatient with her kid, nowhere to be seen. I assumed he was still in the pit playing games, so I went in the back and took the small set of stairs down to the pit. As kitchens were connected, we had a main floor kitchen, upstairs kitchen, bar, and the pit bar. I left through the pit bar and saw the kid sitting around bored because he spent all his quarters on games. I gave him a fresh basket of chicken tenders and fries because why should the child suffer because of a horrible mother? I even got him a nice caffeinated pop to then hopefully make his mother suffer throughout the rest of the day with a hyper child. The rest of the hour went by and still no sign of the waitress. The line cooks were getting worried, and as I was getting out to go look for her, the Karen walked out with a child who was bouncing off the walls. I found the waitress in the bathroom who was so sick she had been puking for the past hour. Her pores were starting to get a little red because of the simple force of vomiting for that long. Somehow, no one knew she was there until I went in. She was sent home and the manager ended up waiting tables for the rest of the shift. I kinda wish the story was more exciting, but malicious compliance with a Karen? Honestly, if I could just piss off entitled people like her all the time, I'd gladly work in customer service for a long time. How exactly did they know they were kitchen staff? Was it the outfit? If you were in OP's shoes and this Karen told you to go off because you're kitchen staff and that you probably made the plate dirty, what would you have done? Let me know in the comment section down below. I want absolutely everything added to the calendar. Sure thing, boss. This is the same kind of story often told in the sub, and mine is dumb, so I'll keep it short. Supervisor introduces a new project management tool to the team. Our team is only 3 people and we don't need a giant professional software solution. Both of us underlings point this out. Supervisor insists. We worry about it being a waste of time. Supervisor says it'll be worth it. We ask for clarification on about what exactly do we need to enter into the new tool. Supervisor says, everything. Everything? Absolutely everything you do should be entered and checked off. Coworker underling gets a gleam in his eye. I understand. So we enter everything into the calendar. Leave home for work? Entered. Arrive at work? Entered. Sit down at desk? Entered. And so on. And every time we accomplished a task, we log onto the program and mark it as complete. Coffee? Check. Write an email? Check. And every time we do this, the program automatically sends an email to supervisor that the task is done. To the supervisor's credit, he took it well and laughed about the overwhelming emails. And it was only a few days later that he dropped the program and we went back to the way it was before. I think it's okay to cut supervisors some slack on this one. They're trying to just boost productivity, and although they don't need it because they're such a small team, the thought was there. One of the reasons they probably pushed it so much despite the pushback from OP and the other coworker is they probably spent some money on the software, so they didn't want to just give up on it. Everyone must join a work call regardless of working hours? Sure. A company I worked for is global, offices all over the globe. It wasn't often, but it was expected that if you were needed on a call outside of your business hours, you would make arrangements to join. Typically a crazy one-off scenario where they needed to find an urgent time slot for a single call. It sounds awful, but it really was infrequent, and most folks were very conscientious when planning meetings. In comes a crappy meeting leader. We'll call her Karen, based in Europe, who scheduled a weekly reoccurring call at what would be 4 a.m. for West Coast USA. I was East Coast, so 7 a.m. for me wasn't bad, but I reminded the meeting leader that the meeting made for the next day was outside their hours. She said they'd see the meeting in their afternoon and be able to accept for the next day. It was especially selfish because there were 8 participants from West Coast, and Karen was the only one in Europe. Next day, no one from West Coast joined. Karen made a big stink about it to management that they'll all have to join weekly for this call. Sadly, it worked, and those poor souls had to join at 4 a.m. every Friday. Within only 2 to 3 weeks, someone from West Coast became very interested and offered to champion the project and become the leader. Karen was happy to relinquish leadership and be a participant only. That very same day they took over the project, the reoccurring meeting was moved to normal business hours, afternoon, West Coast time, evening, Europe time. Karen was not happy and in the first occurrence, kept making remarks about how it's very late Friday evening for her whenever she'd answer a question. My brain is a bit fried because it's late evening here, but… Or, let's not drag this topic out any further as happy hour here has already started, haha. On the third week of the rescheduled call, she stopped joining even though her participation was key, being the only representative from Europe. The new leader had to go to management to get her to join, and when I dropped off the project, they were still meeting Fridays. I hope she learned her lesson. Can somebody say hypocrite? She starts complaining about evening on Fridays, but yet made 8 people on the West Coast go to weekly meetings at 4 a.m. The West Coast people had it way worse than she did. A failed Zoom baby shower / gift parade. I was on another sub and found something that frankly kind of blew me away. Under a thread about asking for suggestions for games to play at a baby shower, the sad and stressed update really had me reeling. Apparently, she has no clue why the 200 people she virtually invited are not playing by the rules, and it's causing a lot of issues now with family and friends. Grandma is posting about the baby shower she is throwing for her 2 daughters, grandbabies number 8 and 9. Since COVID, there are only actually 20 people physically invited to her house, and she only has catering for 20 people because of this. That's totally understandable. With COVID right now, you really don't want to have large gatherings of people, and if her daughters are pregnant, especially you don't want additional people around them if necessary. The rest of the 200 people invited were supposed to form a parade in their cars and drop gifts off, then go home and attend a Zoom meeting for the next 4 hours, watching her daughters open their shower gifts. She did not include the address of her house on the invite because as people RSVP'd, she was going to assign them their place in line so that people weren't sitting in their cars for an hour waiting to drop off their gifts. The sadness and stress? 65% of the 200 people she'd invited hadn't even RSVP'd. Out of the people who were not invited to the house, the few that said they would give a gift didn't see the need to attend a 4-hour Zoom meeting to watch her daughters open gifts. Since they weren't physically invited, some of them decided to pick up shifts at work, which angered her, and the rest of them didn't have a valid reason, in her opinion, to not attend the Zoom meeting to watch her daughters open all their gifts. I was astounded. Yeesh. Just be grateful that people are sending gifts. If people aren't physically invited and can pick up a shift at work, so what? I'm going to bet that the 200 people invited were her spamming her Facebook contacts of every single person she could think of and sending them a generic invite. I don't know anyone who has 200 close friends or family members. Of the people who said they would still give a gift, I'm assuming those people are from her actual close friend or family group. I couldn't believe she was upset they didn't further want to watch a 4-hour Zoom meeting of her daughters opening gifts. Hey, congratulations on your new grandbabies. I'm sure everyone wishes them the best. But when it is not a close friend or family member, people really don't feel the need to sit in a Zoom meeting and watch people they probably barely know open baby shower gifts. I loved baby showers with my friends and family, and the gift opening was cute, but when you go to a 2 to 3 hour gift opening, it's just kind of boring. Hope you liked my gift. I have laundry to do. And you are not going to notice if I'm there or not. Really? I certainly wouldn't sit in my car for an hour in a line of cars to drop off gifts at a certain time. COVID is putting a lot of stress on people, and it's true. People shouldn't be having large gatherings. So I guess you just have to be grateful for the people still willing to gift grandbabies 8 and 9 with something, whether they attend a 4-hour Zoom meeting or not. She was getting a lot of support though on her thread wishing her well. I just thought, wow, she's actually really angry and upset and has no idea that she's asking for way too much. Inviting 200 people? Gift grab. Just be glad some of them are actually going to drop off a gift. OP definitely hit the nail on the head here. It almost seemed narcissistic. Like, woe is me, all 200 people didn't show up giving gifts and fulfilling my dreams. Include me in all conferences moving forward. All conferences? I used to work as the only conference facilitator in a preventative services program with 2 units, 4 case planners each. At the time, I would schedule all necessary conferences with the case planners in Outlook. Supervisors were required to participate in some of the conferences, depending on the purpose, and I would invite them to those. After a few months, one of the units was assigned to a new supervisor. On her first day, she approached me and asked to be invited to all conferences for her unit. I asked if she knew that supervisors did not have to participate in all conferences, and informed her which conferences she needed to be a part of. She responded that she still wanted to be included in all conferences moving forward. Since it was her first day, we hadn't gotten a chance to talk about how I did my job. She didn't know that I periodically planned all conferences ahead of time for all case planners and was often fully booked for the upcoming week or 2. It turned out that on the day she asked, her unit was scheduled for conferences with me every day, with at least 1 or 2 each day for the next 2 weeks. After she asked to be added to the email invite, I included her on all of the conferences for her unit. The next day, she came by my desk and told me it wouldn't be necessary for me to invite her to all conferences and just invite her to those she is required to attend. I did as was asked, but had a laugh to myself after she left. If only they understood how everything worked before going into it. It's all hands on. My daughter told me this story after spending the weekend at her cousin's house. The last morning there, her uncle's girlfriend was making breakfast. Once everything was done and almost everything was set out for people to eat, she went to make herself a plate. She noticed that there was nothing to scoop the food onto the plate with, so she asked, "Where are the forks?" Her uncle's girlfriend told her, "It's all hands on," meaning help get stuff out for breakfast. My daughter, being the smart aleck she is, took this instruction literally. So she went over to the eggs and grabbed a handful and plopped it onto her plate with a smile on her face. Her uncle's girlfriend looked at her for a moment, doubles over laughing and said, "That's not what I meant." My daughter looked at them with a big old grin on her face and told her, "But that's what you said." My daughter thinks she was hilarious. I kind of agree. To be fair, if I asked where the forks were and somebody said, "It's all hands on," I probably would be like, "Wait, you want me to use my hands? I don't need your help." Okay, good luck, have fun. A few years ago, I accepted a contract to write some material for an engineering class. The result was a set of heavily hyperlinked latex documents that compiled into a single PDF of a few hundred pages, with a nice table of contents, embedded images, and carefully written equations in both breakout and inline with text. I was contacted by a student who's been given a short-term contract to convert the latex to HTML so the class can go online. Only 2 small problems. Problem 1, student doesn't know latex. Problem 2, student doesn't know HTML. I suggested that the easiest solution, particularly within a short time frame, would be to use an online tool to convert the latex to HTML, preserving the original structure and hyperlinks of the document set, and using a JavaScript plugin to render the native latex equations. I offered to volunteer some time to make sure it went okay. To the extent that edits or new material were required, the easiest solution would be to edit the latex, which student can learn quite easily. Nope, student didn't want to do any of that. Student has a plan. 1. Import entire PDF rendered from latex into Adobe Acrobat. 2. Use Adobe Acrobat to convert content to Word. 3. Edit content in Word. 4. Manually screenshot every equation in the PDF and drop screenshots into place in the Word document. 5. Use Word to automatically render the HTML for a website. I politely suggested that the plan has some issues. The document structure will be lost. Word is gonna vomit out a single slab of HTML corresponding to the monolithic PDF input. Equations will be mangled. Embedded images will be rescaled 9 different ways, resulting in major quality loss. It's okay. Student is confident. No further help required. Malicious compliance. Not helping. Not my circus, not my monkeys. The content was pristine when I handed it off, and I have a record of the conversation. Have fun storming the castle. OP honestly kind of overstepped their boundaries to the point of trying to help this person figure it all out, and they blindly give it a cold shoulder and they say, no, the way I'm gonna do it, instead of going from latex to HTML, I'm gonna go through Adobe Acrobat and Word and convert it 3 times backwards, and just a terrible process. How I tricked my entitled cousin into eternally cleaning the backyard. So I have this cousin, let's call him Nick, and he is incredibly entitled. But this is the story of how I finally got revenge on him. This happened before the lockdown, but I didn't use Reddit then, so here we are. Nick and my nice cousin, let's call her Elle, came over to watch movies and weird cartoons. Note, we are all 13 to 15 years old. And a few hours later, my mother called me to help her clean the backyard. We have many plants, a pool, and a wooden deck. I headed over and Elle offered some help. Now, Nick always wants to be the best. Nothing is ever enough. So I assume he thought that being a boy, the nicest thing he could do was offer help as well, because boys don't do chores. So he did. Little did he know, as soon as he said that, I already had a plan. Then my mother saw the 3 of us and decided to separate the chores. Nick was going to water the plants, Elle was going to clean the deck, and I was going to clean the exterior chairs and stuff. Perfect! At one point, my mother left to get us snacks. Perfectly predictable, and as soon as she left, Nick finished watering the plants. Also predictable. He came to me and tried to look like he was willing to help, asking me what he should do next. I stood up and showed him a part of the floor near a grass patch and told him how that spot was always dirty. I said that he had done enough and he could rest after cleaning that. What happened next was a mixture of predictable, satisfying, and funny. He had the garden hose in his hand. He used it to water the plants, and used it to try and clean that spot. The dirty part was directly in front of the grass patch, and the water hit the grass and a lot of dirt. Mud and water flew and got the floor even more dirty than before. He said, "Done." Elle started laughing as she noticed my plan, and I just pointed at the floor. He looked and his eyes went wide to see the floor even more dirty. He tried to clean with the hose again and failed miserably. Elle and I sat down and enjoyed the show. After 10 minutes of fun, my mother came back with the snacks and tried not to laugh as she explained to Nick how we tricked him. He was furious and tried to slap me. 1 hour later, my aunt came and was told what happened. Nick got grounded for trying to hit his cousin, and my favorite part, for being dumb. Usually being lazy ends up giving you some kind of critical or analytical mind of some sort where you can break down things, but in this case, Nick was just lazy and not that bright. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today. So what I want to know is, which of these stories was your personal favorite of the day and why? Let me know which story and why in the comments section down below. And thank you all so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video from the Storytime channel. Thank you all again so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.